Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, October 6, 2024. Coming at you live from Florida Media in Rockville Center. Big show coming up for you tonight. The season has started. October is here, and the real games are coming starting Thursday for the New York Islanders. Andrew Gross will be joining us from Newsday. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me, as always, is Mr. Stefen Rosner. Stefen, how do you do?
I'm doing great, but first off, that's a sick shirt you got on there.
Oh, hey, thanks for noticing, pal. No big deal, but summer champions, undefeated season. No big deal.
Not a big deal.
Yeah, not a big deal. Men's league, yeah, good stuff.
Congratulations. Way to brag.
How we doing, man?
We're doing great. I mean, there's a lot to get to. A lot of stuff happened today.
A lot happened, but before we dive into that, I'm going to tell you all about our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. We're also proud to be sponsored by the brand new Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch every Isles game with great food and drinks at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center all season long, and also proud to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law. Ready to fight for you? Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That's RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And folks, we're going to be bumping up Questions Brewing a little earlier in the show because Andrew Gross is joining us later in the show. So make sure if you want to ask us any questions for that segment, type Questions Brewing, put your question in, and then we will field them when we get to the segment. So with the pleasantries out of the way, it is time for Experience Points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe, where we make our points about the Islanders' experience in the previous week. So, Stefen Rosner, camp is over, preseason's over, couple of days between now and Thursday. Obviously, some big news today. What is the big news, Stefen?
Yeah, the Mets. Oh, hockey, not the Mets. Sorry, Met fans. Tough one.
A lot of baseball stuff going on here.
Yeah, but we're not here to talk about that, right?
Oh, okay. All right, fair enough.
All right, so the big news. Pierre Engvall has hit waivers, and a lot of other players hit waivers. Fashing, Foudy, Karlstrom, Bolduc, Hutton, Hogberg, and Skarek. But the big news is Pierre Engvall. I mean, this is a guy that has 6 years left on a 7-year deal at $3 million annually.
Quite a long time.
Yeah, so obviously this is a tough pill for Lou to swallow and the Islanders organization because they had high hopes when you sign a guy to that long-term of a deal, forget the low AAV, that he's going to contribute for at least 5 of those 7 years.
You would have hoped.
He doesn't. Now, it's not over. He can pass through waivers.
Anything can happen.
Can come back up. But one thing to note here is that you can bury $1.15 million of a player's cap in the minors.
Right.
So that leaves $1.85 still in the book. So the Islanders, that still counts against their cap. They're obviously going to hope that someone claims him. If not, could be a trade. But that's the big news of the day. The other news is that Oliver Wahlstrom made the team.
Yeah. And who saw that coming?
And I didn't think, we talked to Lou in Vegas, and he had told us point blank, we're looking to move him elsewhere to give him an opportunity, but we're not going to get rid of him for free. And clearly, the Engvall move was them not giving Wahlstrom away for free. I also didn't think Wahlstrom had a great camp, but at the end of camp, it was clear that Wall liked what he saw, Lou liked what he saw. He got that chance with McLean and Cizikas, and it looks like he's going to stick there to start the season. Yeah,
I think that might be the biggest surprise for me, pal. Oliver Wahlstrom, I was talking about it on Twitter a little bit. I actually piggybacked off of one of your tweets. It's called
X now, Sean.
What? No, it's always Twitter, pal. Okay. It will never be X. As much as Elon tries, it's always going to be Twitter, right, buddy? But, Oliver Wahlstrom didn't see it coming. I don't think a lot of people did. Like I said, you put that tweet out about him getting a chance. He skated in the game against the Rangers on Friday, and it looks like Patrick Roy likes what he sees, at least enough to put him in not only the main roster, but actually the top 12. He's going to get a shot on that fourth line. We'll see how it goes. The saga continues.
I think the biggest thing with Wahlstrom, anyone that asks me, why do you think Wahlstrom's not going to make it? One, because he struggled, but also cap-wise. With him on the roster, they were over the cap. Engvall being put on waivers, whether the full comes off or they have to pay $1.85, it's opened up the door for a contract of that to hit. Now, unfortunately for a guy like Hudson Fashing, he doesn't make it. They chose to keep Gauthier and Wahlstrom, and for Fashing, it really sucks. Back-to-back training camps where he gets hurt. Last year wasn't that bad because he was still going to make the team. This year, with how much depth, and this has been an amazing camp with that, it shows the organization's depth, came right down to the wire for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I think we, and maybe in particular myself, sold this camp a little short. Yeah. Because I was talking about how there wasn't a lot of intrigue going on. And granted, we still knew more or less the majority of the players that were going to make it, but we didn't know where certain puzzle pieces were going to fit. But neither one of us had Wahlstrom making the team on our bingo card, so that kind of changed things up a little bit. But there was some intrigue in the sense that, wow, we didn't see Engvall getting cut, that's for sure. I mean, you would have even used the reasoning of the contract alone just to say he's staying, right? And I think that speaks also a little more clearly to the fan base to say, hey, it doesn't matter what your contract is. It doesn't matter what you're making. Doesn't matter how long your contract is. If you're not fitting the system or the vision of Patrick Waugh, you're not playing.
And look at Samuel Bolduc, another guy that hit waivers.
Yeah.
This is a guy that's, young, former second-round pick. You don't usually see teams do this, but because Cholowski played so well, and you had Hutton, who was there till the end, who's a stable guy, and you got guys like Marsha Warren, Isaiah George, Calio Delius, all these guys now in the system, it made Bolduc expendable. So if they do lose him on waivers, again, tough sell to see a prospect not, produce and be that guy, but they have the organizational depth to back it up. Whether Fashion gets claimed or any of these guys get claimed, they're set.
Yeah, and you've obviously been at the practices. You've been focusing on the games. Even Cholowski making the cut here was a surprise for me.
+7.
What did you see from him?
And first off, plus minus, terrible stat to compare.
Sure.
But Patrick Waugh has been using it a lot. I asked about Pierre Engvall early in camp, and he went, well, he's a -5 through 2 games. You don't usually hear. And then Ethan Sears brought up, he goes, do you use plus minus? He goes, well, it depends on the situation, but a -5 through 2 games, not great. You want to be better. Cholowski was a +7, had a great camp. This is a guy 2 years ago they signed who was a former high first round pick. But yeah, he's got the skating ability like a Sebastian Aho. And obviously Aho is gone.
Who was also waived by the Penguins.
Him, and they signed him to a 2-year deal this summer.
Right.
But yeah, Cholowski is one of those guys, and I think whether it was between Hutton and Cholowski, some can say, well, for a guy that's going to sit and not play, you want the guy that's not the skating type of defenseman. That being said, Cholowski can play on the power play. He's a mobile defenseman. He fits Waugh's system. So I think they made the right decision with Cholowski there.
And also, prior to the show, you and I were talking about this, and you mentioned that Patrick Waugh really didn't care about which side of the ice these guys played on, right? If you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I think it was early on in camp they had Calio Delius prospect on his offside, and I asked Waugh about that, and he said, in today's NHL, could play either side, it doesn't matter, and here we are.
Here we are. All right, so big news up, down, left, and right. Let's talk about Kyle McLean, another guy who he had a breakout year a bit last year. I think he perked all of our eyebrows up a little bit watching him, seeing him play, especially in the playoffs. We've noted that before. But this is a guy who now has a solid spot on that fourth line playing next to Casey Cizikas. Looks like he's going to get some PK time as well. Talk about him.
Yeah, I think he pulled a Fashion card last year. He gets called up, and to the point where the Islanders could have sent him down. But they couldn't, really. When Cizikas got healthy, it was, okay, we got to find a place for McLean. Ends up playing the wing in the playoffs down the stretch. And I think you saw him really just come into his own, and he's one of those guys that plays the Waugh system to a T. Aggressive, fast, gets the puck up the ice, has a strong IQ. And him and Cizikas, this fourth line's been a line where usually Cizikas is the only one in the offensive zone. He gets up, dumps the puck in, and chases it. Now Cizikas is going to be the second guy in the zone.
Yeah,
or he's going to have a partner where odd man rush chances or just rush chances in general, where this could be a line, again, with Wahlstrom too. I'm not saying Wahlstrom is Cal Clutterbuck, right? He's not.
Right.
But Clutterbuck has one of the sickest releases on this team. Now, if Wahlstrom gets up on the play with these guys, they have a sick release on the fourth line. I think McLean is allowed for this line now to be way more offensive than they've been in the past. And also, Cizikas and McLean playing together in part at 5-on-5 is to help them build chemistry for the PK.
Yeah, and this might rejuvenate Cizikas' numbers a little bit here, playing with a couple of guys who aren't just out there to hit and bang bodies. This is now looking like a line that has potential to be a little bit of a threat on the offensive side. Now, granted, you have to, temper your expectations, of course, but maybe they pot the extra odd goal or two that maybe, the line of Martin, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck were going to put in. So I think there's even a little more depth and certainly just very curious to see how Wahlstrom acclimates himself there.
Yeah, and I think, I asked Wahlstrom today if he thought adding the physical element really helped him win a job, and he goes, I've always had it in my game, but it's about confidence with that. Right. You want to, you don't want to just throw hits. Romanov, when he first came here, lit the league on fire in terms of just hitting people. The problem was he was going out of position to lay the hits and make those reads, and that's why Dobson and Romanov got separated early on, because they'd both be up on the play and making plays and making mistakes. And I think for Wahlstrom, having two speedy guys that also get back, they go up on the rush is great, but getting back on defense is important. Wahlstrom could pick and choose those spots to lay that hit or not, depending on where they are on the ice. So I think, Waugh also said that the reason Wahlstrom's there is he hopes that those two rub off on him.
Okay, right on. And one important name we absolutely have to talk about is Ilya Sorokin.
Yep.
He is back. Not only is he back, but he looks healthy.
He looks like himself, rejuvenated. He joked, and again, this could be the broken Russian English translation here, but he said he discovered a new muscle this summer in his back.
Is that right?
I guess working it out. But
okay, he's a funny dude.
He's hysterical, and he's great. So once you saw Hogberg get placed on waivers, you knew that Sorokin was 100% ready to go because they wouldn't have done that. They could have LTIR'd him or IR'd him. IR him doesn't clear him from the cap, but creates the roster spot. And when we asked Lou about it today, he said Sorokin's 100% healthy. He did mention that, he maybe has said day or two at camp, that's all he would miss. He said maybe the timeline got moved back, but we had to do everything possible to make sure he was 100%. Talking with him, as much as he wanted to get into a preseason game, he said timing is the biggest thing he's got to get readjusted to in terms of when to slide. All those things, timing in games is important. But he said, listen, I can't control that. I'm going to get ready now. I'm going to be ready to go. So I asked Wah is there a chance Sorokin's ready for opening night to start? And he said, we'll take it day by day. I'd be shocked if Sorokin started. There's no reason for him to start. But he's ready to go. That's the most important thing. And Hogberg's on waivers. And if Hogberg does clear, then you have a perfect option. God forbid, Varlamov, who's gotten hurt in back-to-back years, Sorokin injury, whatever. You have now a stable guy that come and win you games, not a random, what are we going to get out of this guy? Hogberg looked great in preseason.
He did. And let's face it, I think everybody was starting to get a little nervous about Sorokin.
Yeah.
This was going to be a little longer than we thought. Obviously, at the beginning of camp, Lou Lamoriello had said it's only going to be 2 or 3 days, and ended up being much more than that. But now he's back just in time, maybe to give Varlamov at least the first start. But then it looks like maybe Sorokin's ready to go after that, maybe in Dallas.
He looks great. He's not being held back by anything. He's full throttle, 100% at practice. The players, Barzal said when he was injured, it looked like it was like a dog in a cage. How much he wanted to be out there. Romanov told me that he was working out twice a day to try to get back.
That's great.
He didn't rush himself. Everyone's going to get concerned. They don't want to rush him. He's 100% ready to go and healthy. They're not letting him play. But he worked his tail off to get back, maybe sooner than people would have expected from a back surgery. We don't know exactly what the injury was.
Right.
Not everyone thinks that one back surgery is the same like Vasilevsky's back surgery.
Right, of course. There's a lot of parts of the back.
Exactly. There are a lot of parts. But Sorokin is 100% healthy, ready to go. He's not injuring himself or risking injury by doing what he's doing now, which is the positive because he is a long-term investment.
He's a $64 million man. You got to make sure he's when he gets out there,
correct,
he's good to go.
Correct. Unlike Swayman, who is not a $64 million man, but he did, actually now he is. He wasn't when they were talking about the deal.
Right.
He gets the Sorokin deal. But yeah, Sorokin is ready to go. No one should worry. Now it's about playing because maybe he gets bailed out. He said he didn't get hurt last year at all, and it was an offseason thing.
Okay.
You could buy that or not. I think it's easy to look and say he wasn't healthy last year. That's me making an excuse for him.
Sure.
Regardless of who's making the excuse, there's no more excuse now. He's healthy.
Right.
So the issues you saw last year with the rebound control, just with the consistency, you can't blame it on the back. The back's fine. So now it's about Sorokin to show up and be the guy they're paying.
So real quick before we break, we're not going to go through the games. 4-2 in the preseason. They look good in that last one against the Rangers. You got an idea of what the full roster, generally speaking, looked like that night against a generally speaking full roster New York Rangers, right? So that was encouraging.
Minus the players that Mayfield hurt, but yeah.
Right. But let's just quickly focus on that first line. And throughout the preseason, what did you see from Barzal, Horvat, and Duclair?
Well, Barzal just had an amazing game. 5-point game, a goal, 4 primary assists. They look like a unit that's played together for years. Maybe it took some time from preseason one against that game against the Rangers that they played in was unreal. Then the game after that, it wasn't as good. Barzal said he could have had better job entering the zone. But you have 3 guys that have speed that know how to play with one another. We've talked so much about how Barzal makes it really hard for somebody to play with him that's not used to him. But it looks like that Duclair has been with Barzal for years.
They're fitting pretty well.
And Horvat,
don't want to get too overexcited in the beginning here. But
and again, we talked last year about Barzal career highs, right, in goals and points and doing that because Horvat opened the ice for him. Now you have Anthony Duclair here that's also opening the ice. This could be a big year. This could be a top 10 first line in hockey and a line consistent enough. I think, yes, you want him to be hot, but every night you want to know these guys are going to be a top force for us. Waz said numerous times, it's great to have a great top line, but if we're going to win games, it's going to be a 4-line thing, hence Wahlstrom being on the 4th line, scoring from all 4 lines, things like that. But this top line, this should be the first year in quite some time. The Islanders have 3 forces on one line, bringing it as a top line every night.
So if you were to dole out experience points, obviously Pierre Engvall got to be at least a -20, right? for getting cut.
Yep.
Obviously, Patrick Waugh didn't like what he saw out there. You look at maybe some of the guys who impressed. Who impressed you? Give me some experience points. Who leveled up?
Yeah, so we didn't talk about him. We're going to talk about him a lot. Maxim Siplikov.
Yes.
He leveled up twice. 4th line,
Twice,
maybe 3 levels. Starting with an AHL type of fringe guys, then to the 4th line, then to the 3rd line, staple on the 2nd line. His growth in terms of English terms of understanding just how everything goes about in the system with Wah, understanding his game and how to bring the best out of it on a nightly basis. 800 experience points.
800.
Yeah,
That's an all-time record here. 2 episodes in, 800
Funny
points.
enough, Kyle Palmieri, when he was on the Ducks, started on the 4th line, 3rd line, 2nd line, 1st line. It took him like a year to get to the top line. Sipakov did it in like 2 weeks.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad
it's
at all.
It's a pretty good jump. And the Islanders need it.
You give him 800, I'll give him 765 to be a little more humble on that. But we'll talk more about Sipakov later. But that'll do it for Experience Points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Unplug your game and raise your experience at Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play. Food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game. And now we're going to go to break.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest, and Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook, or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, folks. The train rolls on right into Center Station in Rockville Center, our presenting sponsor here of What's on Tap. So finally, not only do we have games on tap, Stefen, but they are games that count. These are real games, points in the standings. Let's talk about what happens this week for the New York Islanders.
Well, I think they hope they win a hockey game here against Utah.
I think they want to win most games that they play.
Yeah, I think it's really important. One, it's at home against a brand new Utah team. It would be lackluster for the Islanders to give Utah their first win. Utah does open up against Chicago, so we'll see what happens there. I mean, that should be a slam dunk. Then again, who knows? It's hockey.
I think it's nice that they're getting their opening game out of the way against somebody else.
Right. And I think the Islanders, especially after this camp, the way that they worked under Wah to get to this point, they're going to be ready to go. I think sometimes in years past, we don't know what kind of team we get. We don't know if they're going to win or lose, but you know what we're going to get based on what we've seen in practice, preseason, and what Wah said. And then they go on the road for 3 games. So it's important. You're starting at home in front of the Islanders faithful after a year where, you snuck in again. You want to be better at home. It's time to leave their mark on game 1. And I think they're more prepared than I think we've ever seen them entering a season.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you brought that up, them being ready, because I loved reading the tweets, everything coming out about Patrick Waugh bag skating these guys every night from jump, right? I mean, day 1, he had these guys doing suicide runs, whatever you want to call it. And
I'm calling them sandbaggers because it's 2024, Sean.
Sorry if it's dark, disclaimer. But but look, the fact that they're skating hard from day 1, there's no nonsense here. Patrick Waugh wants to have their legs under them so they're ready to go from puck drop in game 1, and I think that's going to make a huge difference.
1,000%. We saw from day 1 when Waugh came in last year, it was going to be so different. And having the camp to establish structure, players already knowing, they all said at camp, we knew it was going to be hard, but they're also panting while we're talking to them because they're still, it wasn't that they bag skated and then were done. Bag skated, then they went over to the other side for like an hour.
Right.
And kept going. And Waugh's whole thing was essentially, I'm going to break you guys down mentally.
Good.
And build you up the right way.
Good.
It was right out
I
of.
must break you.
It was like the miracle. It was a miracle scene. We have to bet. I would buy Wah a whistle for Christmas, but he uses his own mouth for the whistle, so
Nicely
wouldn't
done.
be pointless. Yeah.
Very good, very good. Yeah, it's great to see. And look, I mean, and it was also good to see the players' attitude about it too. Getting the quotes that they're like, yeah, we're into it. Let's do it. You know, like we want this, instead of being like, yeah, he's kind of running us. You know, take it easy a little bit.
You mentioned a great point. Anytime we spoke to Wah about, let's say it was Siplikov, about getting better in one area, McLean, or the team, Wah would say, I want it, sure. But doesn't matter if I want it. They want it. We want it. He wants it. Because at the end of the day, he goes, I'm a coach. You know, I want everything. I want it to be great. But it's because they want it. He said that about Siplikov in building his way and finding his thing. You talked about McLean. You know, all the players that we asked him about, he was saying they come and ask questions. They want it. They want it. I want it, but they want it, and that's what's important. And that's why you're going to see results. Coaches, we always talk about it. Yes, it's easier to fire a coach than a team. But if the players buy in the way the players have bought into Wah, this is why this team will have success, in my opinion, because it's a full team effort from the coaching staff, well, upper management, coaching staff to every player. And unfortunately for the players that didn't buy in 110%, they're the ones that probably aren't here, like a Pierre Engvall. No,
Right,
it's
for
not
sure.
me attacking Pierre, but effort at times was questionable. Under Wah, that's not happening, which is why Pierre Engvall is not here.
Yeah, crazy to think with all those years in the contract, but here we are. So Thursday, opening night for the New York Islanders at home at UBS Arena against the artists formerly known as the Arizona Coyotes. That's going to be a fun one. We'll be in the building. Can't wait to see that game. Going to be a lot of fun. And then Saturday, the 12th in Dallas, starts a little West Coast roadie that you were talking about before. Good way to start the season. We'll probably talk more about that another time. But there you go. 2 games this week. Good stuff. Islander hockey is here. And that'll do it for What's on Tap, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch great food, drinks, and Isles games and live events at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. And now we're going to go right in to the hero of the week.
Right in.
It's very heroic.
Yeah, I know. I'm ready to run through a brick wall.
That's
All right.
louder than I remembered.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
way
you know.
louder.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know who's controlling the levels back there, but
I think it's just the file itself.
here we are for Hero of the Week. Stefan, I'm going to let you take it away. What do you got for us?
So I have Patrick Waugh. We've talked about the reasonings, getting the team prepared, but today at UBS Arena, they had a season ticket event where you come and watch live practice. And after the practice was done, after he bag skated them in front of the Islanders faithful, Waugh picked up a microphone.
Right.
And he pretty much gave a great speech about how they're doing everything they can to make the fans proud. You saw the fans start cheering, going nuts. And for Patrick Waugh, since day one, he's come in and made it about the fans.
Right,
I'm not saying
he
the
has.
Islanders pre-Waugh or even under Trotz didn't make it about the fans.
Sure.
But in any press conference, when we ask about the power play, shooting more, we need to give the fans a show. We need to do that. After the game against the Rangers, he said, our goal for Thursday is to give them the show we just gave them right now. So everything's been about the fans, what he's brought to this team since coming here, that passion, that fire. He's going to play a huge part in if the Islanders have success this year, which I think they will. So that's why he is my hero of the week.
Well done, Stefan. I like it. It's nice to see Patrick Waugh finally get his full training camp. I think the leadership that he's shown, obviously addressing the fans and making it about the fans, he gets it.
He gets it. And he says, by the way, he says on Long Island and not in.
I'm sure PR gave him a little prep
Just saying,
on that.
some people mess that up. So
You're absolutely right, but great stuff with Patrick Waugh. I am going with Maxim Siplikov. This guy has been a beast so far. What a pleasant surprise. We all didn't know what we were going to get out of this guy, but he looks like the real deal. Now, granted, it's just training camp. It's just preseason. But as you said, the guy leveled up throughout the lineup, right? He finds himself in the top 6 now. He's going to get a shot with Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri. He's getting a shot on the power play. Looked great.
that's what I'm saying about that's why I was doing this.
Oh, I know.
Calling it the scarecrow.
Yes, he looked great on the power play. Not only that in front of the net, but controlling the puck behind the net, showing patience, dishing to the right place, right guy at the right time, setting up Barzal to set up Horvat for goals. The power play looked great. Again, we all have to temper, excitement with preseason. You never know. I remember, the late 90s and the Ziggy Palffy years where they would win games in the preseason. You're getting excited, and then they went on to lose like 60 out of 80 games that year. But I don't think that's going to be the case this time around. But it's nice to have a little controlled excitement here from what we saw in preseason. Also, good vibes heading into game one after that big win against the Rangers. And Siplikov, I think, so far is exceeded expectations. Big body, 6'3", 210, I believe. Not only does he have a big body, but he's using
You saw that
his
power
body
move
as
to the
well.
net.
The power move to the net, taking the body, laying out hits. Like I didn't know that we were going to see that from him. He might have just been one of your, stereotypical, European player who's just there for the finesse game, shoot, handle the puck and score. No, he was laying the body too. So it looks like he might have a pretty complete game here. Maybe the foot speed is the knock, but as long as he can get over that, he might end up being a really big key to this team this year.
And you mentioned foot speed. And I want to mention, too, is the lack of foot speed. I'm not saying he's slow, but the lack of that raw, quick speed he makes up with the high IQ plays. The passing, the decisions to slow the pace down if he's not going to rush a play behind the net. You don't have to be fast by the net. You just got to think fast. So I think
Correct.
all of those skills that he has mentally makes up for whatever the physical thing he's lacking.
Absolutely. So that'll do it for Hero of the Week. Patrick Waugh, Maxim Siplikov. There we go. Why don't you tell us a little about something else?
Yeah, talking about Isles Fix. Islanders Country. Get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the only Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com.
There you go. And now we're going to take it to the Snake Den.
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake Redonis.
That's right, folks. Welcome to the Snake Den. Jake the Snake Redonis, look at you in your Mets garb. You got the glove, you got the ball. Unbelievable.
Loser.
Pal, how we doing? How is your last 2 weeks since the last show?
With the Mets, it's been pretty crazy, but other than that, it's been good.
Okay.
Took a visit to my alma mater, Oswego. And,
Okay.
Just got back today. Excited for the season to be starting.
Very
And I would
nice.
also like to wish you a happy Brocktober.
Happy Brocktober, everyone. We're here. Hopefully we see 17 goals. We probably won't.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. So, Jake, it's your time to shine. You got a take for us?
Yeah, I mean, well, I was pretty taken aback today when I saw the Pierre Engvall news. That was pretty crazy. Wasn't expecting that one. We'll see what happens there. If he's going to get claimed, maybe they're working out a trade. I think it's important to note, though, he does have a 15-team no-trade
Good point there.
clause.
Right.
So,
That is
I mean,
important.
if you're Pierre Engvall, are you going to lift that? Because do you want to play in the NHL or do you want to play in the AHL?
Yeah, I think the answer
Fair
is
point.
pretty obvious. I mean, I don't think anyone wants
Right.
to play in the AHL.
Right.
But no, it's a good point, Jake, because he does have a 15-team. Also want to add that if a team claims him on waivers, he'll be okay. Like, he'll be, any team could claim him. It doesn't matter that he has a 15-team no trade. And like Jake just said too, if a team says, hey, we want you, I can't see Pierre Engvall saying, I'd rather play in Bridgeport. No offense to Bridgeport, but it's Bridgeport.
Right. Or just, forget about whether it's Bridgeport or another AHL team. I'd rather ride in the plane than ride in the bus.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
1000%.
as simple as that.
Yep.
The first thing Holmstrom told me about when he got called up, and he goes, the food's better. The flying's better.
Right.
Everything's better. So
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
question about it.
So, yeah, I'm curious to see what happens there. I mean, I think for Pierre Engvall, it's someone you could say had moments with the Islanders. He had some good moments, he had some bad moments, some memorable moments, and some memorable moments that were memorable for not great reasons.
A little eulogy.
Yeah. But, yeah, I wish Pierre the best of luck. I just don't think it worked here. He didn't fit in the system. He's not a Patrick Waugh guy, it seems to be.
Ding, 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 ding.
But the
That's
truth
it right there.
is, we may not have seen the last of Pierre
No.
Engvall.
That is
he
true.
might make it through waivers. There might be injuries, and there could be a call-up. We don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know.
actually, I wanted to ask you guys that. Do you think there's a chance that Pierre Engvall plays another game for the New York Islanders?
I think that's going to depend on health, but I'm gonna really go out on a limb here and say no.
So I'm going to say no, but I'm also going to say no because there's two ways Pierre handles this if he doesn't get claimed. He just goes to Bridgeport and lights it up because he's an NHLer playing in. If he's clearly an NHL player, he's going to light up in Bridgeport.
Right.
But it's the work ethic. You know how many guys just got sent down? Let's say they passed through. Karlstrom, Foudy, and Fashing, all 3 minutes of the final cuts. Those guys have never had effort issues. Ever.
Right.
So you're talking about when a call-up's needed, depending on the position, who's playing better in Bridgeport's going to get the call. Again, we already know that the contract does not matter. Also, his cap hits are much bigger. So they would have to be able to call him up and have the cap space to make that call.
That's a good point.
Where the other guys are
That's
making
a good
under $1
point.
million.
Right.
So I don't think we see Pierre for financial reasons because they're still close to the cap. But two, people have to deserve the call up. And I just think Engvall's effort, I don't think he's going to change as a player, even if it's AHL level, because effort's one thing that shouldn't matter. NHL, AHL, and consistency. Sure, maybe he has more points in Bridgeport, But Waugh needs players that he could rely on and trust, and it's clear that Waugh didn't trust Engvall to bring it every night.
Right. He may not even be the first call-up if they do have injuries or what have you. So, Jake, real quick before we go to questions, Bruin, how many experience points for Maxim Siplikov?
Well, I mean, you guys started out with a bang over there.
Yeah, we were very liberal with the points tonight.
Right. Let's see. I'm going to give him 700. I'm excited to see what he can do.
Okay.
I think this is a guy who could be an immediate impact player for this team. And if that's the case, I think that it's going to benefit this team more than we can even imagine.
We'll see what happens, but right now we're going to go into Questions Bruin.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
Wow. Edzo and Jay, how we doing, boys?
Doing great. I'm excited. New season for
We're
us
here.
and our fans. Yeah,
We're here.
I'm
It's
happy.
October. How's the chat going, man?
We're very inquisitive tonight.
Is it inquisitive?
That's a big word.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Good
Thanks, Stefan.
Yes, it is.
That's an astute observation for you.
Wow.
And you also, you missed your quote. When you did your hero.
Oh, you're right. I did.
know.
You know
I
what?
had it on lock.
That's on me. That's my bad.
Yeah.
You know what? We'll do it at the end. We'll do it at the end.
Yeah,
You
we'll
can
figure it out.
There'll be more.
After we talk to Andrew, we'll get it in real quick.
Yeah,
How about that?
we have a nice quote from Bohravat for you. Yeah.
Okay.
So, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let's start off with Golf Man over on YouTube.
Golf man.
Golf Man. At 5v5 this preseason, the Isles were 4th in the NHL in puck possession and 1st in the NHL scoring chance. Is this irrelevant or a sign of their depth and structure?
I think somewhere in the middle. Where great sign that that's what they were doing. But again, like with preseason, especially in the early games where you're seeing a lot of guys that aren't even going to be getting near the NHL rosters. That's not only for the Islanders, but also for the teams they're playing against. You kind of take it with a little bit more of a grain of salt. But at the same time, these guys are going out there and they want to establish their game. They want to hit the ground running, once they start on Thursday, right? So I think it's encouraging in that regard. And just from what we saw on the ice, especially in the latter games, especially in the Ranger game, the first line has looked excellent. And hopefully that continues. So I think somewhere in the middle where you take note of it and say, hey, this could be something here, but at the same time, anything can really happen the preseason and things could go better than you thought or worse than you thought.
What I'll add is that possession time, something that Waugh spoke about so much last year in losses and in wins. Our O-zone possession time was this. Our defensive zone possession time was this. Look, we got better at this. We got better at that.
Right.
So I think possession time is huge because it means that the Islanders are possessing the puck, which means more offensive chances. So I think, like you said, the games earlier on, it's very hard to decide between, all right, well, that's a fourth line out there, an AHL roster, whereas it's a pro roster who they play against. But, yeah, possession time's a big thing for Waugh.
Next up from Black Quinn. Gauthier makes it out yet of another camp. How long before he inevitably gets sent back down?
It's a very good question. Yeah, this is something that we talked about even today with Lou. Gaudier's a guy that shows up in preseason, and then during the year he has his moments like he's had last year against Florida.
Yeah.
It's going to also depend when he gets into the lineup. Right now, Wahlstrom's starting, but if Wahlstrom struggles minor league, Gauthier comes in, and it's all about making the most of your opportunities. Because other players are put on waivers, and because Gauthier usually passes through, if Wahlstrom struggles and Gauthier comes in and Gauthier struggles, they're not going to waste too much time. This division is so wide open that you can't have lulls at all. You got to find a way to be consistent, and if those guys aren't going, I wouldn't be shocked to see Gauthier waived and Fashion called up at some point.
And I was also mildly surprised to see Gauthier not only get late into the cutting process, but not get cut at all.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, he was the guy that Waugh wasted no time banishing down to the A in favor of Wahlstrom last year to give Wahlstrom his last, what we thought was his last gasp chance at sticking with this team. So the fact that Gauthier was able to turn that around, impress in camp, and now make the cut here, speaks a little bit for him.
Yeah, I mean, Islander fans hope that Gauthier lights it up, but we'll see.
Next up from Mel Armenia. Did you watch Face Off inside the NHL on Prime? I thought it was great and would love to see some of the Islanders players on there.
Did not.
I didn't watch it, but I'll tell you one thing. I would be absolutely shocked if Lou ever let a camera into the locker room for any of those reasons. That's why they're probably not on there. He's very strict. The league could say we want to do it, but I would be very shocked if we ever see it with Lou in charge. Them having that close of access. You saw McDavid in the room. Obviously, it's the playoffs, Stanley Cup, high intense moments, but Lou's all about protecting his players. I don't think he's going to let, unless the league made it like you have to.
I think if the league says we want to get back there, they're going to get back there.
But there's probably a reason why they weren't on it.
Next up from State of Survival on YouTube. Any chance that Siplikov is at least a runner-up for the Calder this year?
Great point. exception to point one. I've checked actually the other day. The line's not out for him to be up for the Calder betting wise. But yeah, you're talking about a guy that scored 31 goals in the KHL last year, not in 82 games. It was less games. 31 goals. It's not an accident. He's playing in a top 6 role here in a system that's built on speed, skill, and scoring. This is not going to be a defensive system.
Right.
Yeah, there's a very strong chance Siblakov's going to be in the running for Calder. We'll see, but he's on a line that scores goals. I mean, Nelson, Palmieri each had 30 goals last year. And the power play, too. I think point-wise he'll get there. I don't think he'll lead rookies in goals, but power play points behind the net. I mean, we saw that pass to Barzal to Horvat. That could happen a lot. So I think for sure this guy could be a guy that's in the Calder race from the get-go.
That would be a great boon for the Islanders because that means the points are coming up. But again, preseason, he looks great now. Let's see how he looks in the real thing.
Next up from CGS, will we see a hot Brocktober or a lackluster one?
When was the last time we saw a lackluster Brocktober?
Last October.
Shut up, Stefan.
Okay. I'm leaving. No.
Yeah, I guess so. But you know what? Like, I think he kind of changes months now, every now and then. You know what I mean? Even if October isn't so broccoli, maybe one later on.
What I will say is, remember, they now have a quote-unquote staple with them also. And number two, last year it was we got to decide which line guards who. And I think with Barzal and Horvat, there were times where the D could say, we're going to guard the Nelson, Palmieri, Engvall line. That was hot. But now defense has to choose which one. And I think Nelson lines, you have to put the top D against the Barzal, Horvat, Duclair line. That I think that might open the floor for Nelson. Also, I'm pretty sure Nelson's on the second power play unit now.
Yeah.
So that might even open more opportunities on the PK when the other team's on the PK where he's going against the second PK unit rather than the first. More opportunities there because Wad did say each unit's going to have a minute to create something. And if not, I'm switching. Whereas opposed in years past, the first power play unit's getting a minute 50. The second one's getting 1 10-second chance.
I think the beauty of this lineup going into this year is with Siplakov being a bit of a wild card. I'll put that out there. But I don't think there's anybody in the forward group that looks out of place.
Right.
Everybody is kind of where they're supposed to be. Now, maybe if you're a cynic, you say, I don't know about Duclair in the first line, but he's looked pretty damn good up there. So, to me, if you go from top to bottom, line 1 through line 4, I mean, the fact that you got Lee, Pajot, and Holmstrom, I think that's gonna be a nice third line, I think. And I think for the, compared to last year, you're kind of like, this guy's here, not sure if it's going to work out. Here, it's like, these guys all make sense where they are. And as long as they kind of fulfill the potential that I think, is in front of us now on paper, I think it's going to look pretty good.
I wouldn't be shocked if the fourth line, in terms of point production, has more than the third line at 5-on-5.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Next up from Adam Schechter. How did Sorokin look at practice, and will we see him start in the next few weeks?
Sorokin looks incredible. I mean, he looks like Sorokin. We have to see him in a game and the pressure and things like that, but lateral movement is as explosive as ever. I think, back injuries are, for most goalies or catchers in baseball, eventually a goalie's going to need back surgery probably, or something done to their back with just what the wear and tear.
It's a lot of muscles in the back.
But for Sorokin to get it done this early in his career at 29 rather than at 34, 35, this might allow him to be that elite, or that what we saw a couple of years ago, last longer into his 8-year deal. Obviously, it's the first of an 8-year deal.
Hope so.
But in 34, 35, that could be when the back gives out, where now it just got done already. So if he could find a way to get back to that elite level, which it looks like he's 100% healthy, ready to go, that might bode well long-term for the Islanders.
Well, not only that, you look at that age, and there's a guy right next to him in Semyon Varlamov. Now, as far as I know, he hasn't had any back surgery, but the guy's still getting it done at that age. So hopefully we see the same thing for Sorokin.
But yeah, Sorokin looks incredible.
Nice. Next up from DTMR. Who picks up the Martin role of being the muscle?
We talked about this a little bit 2 weeks ago. We were asking questions, Bruin, about the Islanders potentially missing the physicality of Martin and Clutterbuck. I think that remains to be seen. I think the answer is going to be similar in that we got to see it throughout the lineup. I think a healthy Mayfield is going to help there. I mentioned that as well. Yeah, listen, I don't think you're looking at the lineup and saying, this is an intimidating lineup. Obviously, there's not anybody now that strikes the same kind of fear in you as a Martin or a Clutterbuck. You just can't deny that, right? But I don't think this is a team that's going to get pushed around either. No. Maybe they're not going to be doing a lot of pushing around themselves, but as long as they can hold their own and kind of fend off the pushing around from other teams, I think they're going to be all right.
I mean, Duclair went at Rempe the other night.
Yeah,
Pajot fights. Mm-hmm. Don't forget that Wahlstrom dummied D'Angelo. I mean, Wahlstrom's not
That's
scared.
true, and maybe that's something he has to consider now in the role that he has in the fourth line. Maybe he comes out of the woodwork here, and all of a sudden he's a little more physical than we thought. I mean, cross your fingers, but maybe that's what we see.
Next up from Isle 72. Does Maxim get to play on the power play 1 from the start?
I think that's what we're seeing.
I think so. He got it the other day because Palmieri was maintenance.
Right.
Regardless of, I think they're going to put him on the top. Just that chemistry with Barzal and Horvat, you want to establish that. But Palmieri's been good there, and I think if you add him to the second line, it just makes the power play even deeper. Like I said before, you're getting 2 power play units that could be number ones. So I don't think it's a bad thing he's on the second one, but he's on the power play. He's going to stick there. He is a net front menace, and behind the net, like you mentioned, I don't remember the last time the Islanders had a guy like that play that kind of role.
No, it was a completely different look, and it worked great, and it worked great against a good team in the New York Rangers. So again, could be promising.
Next up from Michael LaRusca, what is Wad's expectations of this fourth line with Wahlstrom? I would have to think they're expected to be more than just a straight checking line.
Yeah, this is going to be a line that is the definition of what Wad wants. Aggressive, get on the forecheck, make plays, has some offense. Kyle McLean he could not say he's going to score 20 goals, but he has that potential. We've seen it. The breakaway goals he scored, his first career goals out of a breakaway, he scored a couple of goals different ways during preseason. Zizekas, like you mentioned, he's a 20-goal scorer. He did it once, but that earned him his contract.
Right.
More offensive now with guys that he could skate with up the ice. This is going to be a line that he's going to rely on to shut down the opponent's best, but also when they get their chances, bury. I think this is going to be a line that's going to be relied upon, not heavily, but relied upon to produce offensively, whereas past years, it was more of just hit, play defense, focus on not allowing goals. I think this is going to be a line that produces.
We talked a bit about Pierre Engvall earlier, and Tom Boyle asks, if Engvall clears, do you see him reporting to Bridgeport?
Yeah, I don't know why he wouldn't. If he wants to earn a chance to be on the NHL, if he doesn't do that, they're going to have a way to buy. I mean, it helps the Islanders if he doesn't report.
Right.
Because then he gets a compliance buy or whatever.
He's going to want to make sure he continues to get those checks.
Because you have to remember, guys, too, is that the Islanders on the books only count 1.85. The organization has to pay him the $3 million.
Yeah.
It just doesn't count on the books.
Right.
So he's going to want his money. So if he doesn't report, he loses that. And who knows? I mean, he has stability, whether it's not playing or not. He has stability for the first time in his career with that long-term deal. I don't think it's wise for him to go against that and lose that all.
I agree.
Another one from Aisle 72. I thought Foudy and Hutton were solid in preseason. What was your take?
I thought Foudy was great. I actually would have thought that Foudy would have gotten the opportunity over Gauthier. I also think Foudy's a guy that could get claimed. Speed and hockey IQ. We saw that goal where he passed off the boards to himself. Good. I mean, that's a high IQ play. I asked Watt about that. He said, yeah, look at that. That's the real deal. Hutton, I thought, was fantastic at doing what he does best. Keep it simple, stupid. The kiss. Everyone says that.
Sure, yep.
And he just does that. He's positionally sound. He's going to be great for the Bridgeport team, a younger Bridgeport back end. He'll be a great role model for them. Again, he had a great camp, and he stayed till the end, but I think they wanted Cholowski because of the power play and the mobile defense kind of game.
And let's sneak in one more quick one.
That would be all.
Nice.
That we actually just got to all of them.
Look at that. So, folks, that will do it. 4 questions, Bruin. Usually we have some leftovers there, and just to touch on that, we've talked about maybe moving. So the chat's always going to be on Twitch if that's where you're most comfortable with. We're trying to get people over on YouTube as well. When we do have more of a busy night with the chat, they have super chats over there on YouTube. If you do the super chat and you throw your question in there, you will be guaranteed to get your question addressed, as long as it's not stupid, silly, ridiculous, or offensive, but something to consider as well. If you find yourself during Questions Brewing where you're throwing questions out there and we're not getting to them, you can always try a super chat on YouTube. So that will do it for Questions Brewing. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, Andrew Gross of Newsday is going to join us. You're tuning in to Hockey Night in New York. We'll be right back.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is Hockey Night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching Hockey Night in New York, and joining us on the line from Newsday, friend of the show, Mr. Andrew Gross. Andrew, how's the drumming going, and how you been, buddy?
Well, since I moved into an apartment, the drumming has been curtailed because I don't want to get my rear end kicked out within 3 months of moving in. So
That's fair. That's fair. How you been otherwise, pal?
Good. Sean, Stefen, it's great to talk to you guys. It's great to be talking hockey again, right? I mean, how was your summer?
It was too fast, but it was good. Getting ready for the season. We are in our comfort zone now, talking Islanders hockey. Excited to be back. But Andrew, let's start with you and your thoughts on this training camp and preseason, and maybe some surprising cuts today for the roster. Maybe give us your assessment on that and where this is all leading for the New York Islanders.
Yeah, this is going to be an old reference that maybe some of the younger people in the audience don't get, but all I kept thinking today was Warner Wolf screaming, "If you had Pierre Engvall making the opening night roster, you lost."
Wow.
But no one gets that because that's from the 70s. So
yeah, you even sorry, you didn't get me on that one either. Sorry, bud.
Warner Wolf, look him up. He was a legend.
All right, fair enough.
But yeah, no, it's surprising in some ways because I think Stefen, back me up. You, me, and Ethan were at practice one day, and we were talking about what they were going to do with the opening night roster, and Pierre Engvall came up. And I think Ethan was saying, he's not going to make it. And I was just, I guess I was stubborn. I was like, no, he'll be there. He'll be there because he's got to be there because he's in the second year of a 7-year, $21 million deal. And what are you going to do with this guy?
He signed until flying cars come out. Yeah.
We were actually the other part of the discussion was how many of us were still going to be on the beat when Pierre Engvall's contract actually expired.
That's a fact. That was said, yes.
So, like I said, or as Warner Wolf said, I certainly lost on that because, I guess with Lou, you can look at it two ways. One, I'm sure Patrick Waugh, as Stefen kept saying today, and I think as he wrote, Patrick Waugh went to Lou and said, I can't use this guy, right? So you got to give Lou credit, I guess, for listening to his coach and assessing the situation. On the other end, there's a lot of questions now. There were a ton of questions at this time last year. Pierre Engvall, 7 years. Why? Why would you do 7 years? No one else is offering him more than 2 or 3. Why do you got to give him 7? So I think those questions have to be asked and raised again.
Yeah, and Andrew, another surprising move here is Wallstrom making the team now. Lou had told us at the draft that he's going to try to move him, but he's still here. So I guess what are your thoughts on Wallstrom at the end of camp, and how do you think he really fits in with McLean and Cizikas?
It's interesting because, yes, Lou said at the draft, he was like, we're not just going to give him away for free, but if there's a situation, and I think Wally himself was all on board with finding a different location, one where he felt he would have more of a chance. And talking to Wallstrom, and I think he said this at one point or another multiple times to all of us, he was just concentrating on like 3 or 4 things that he wanted to focus on. He wouldn't tell us what it was, but he wasn't looking at the big picture. I don't think, what was it, today he said he had no expectations coming into camp. And I think if anyone's surprised that they're going to be on the opening night roster, it's Oliver Wallstrom. I don't think he was expecting this at all. You know what? He scored a really nice goal the other day, and we've seen this from him before, so you don't want to put too much weight into that. I thought, especially earlier in camp, he was having a ton of trouble with puck management, and it just didn't seem like he was flowing. But he got stronger towards the end of camp, and I think and Stefen's mentioned this a ton of times and asked questions, like the physicality that Wallstrom is showing, it makes him a little bit more flexible up and down the lineup. He doesn't have to be amongst the top 6 because he's a sharpshooter only. he's actually proven that on a fourth line or on a checking line, he's going to be able to be trusted to, play some defense and also throw his body and get in on the forecheck and start to wear other opponents down. And look, we all know this is not what Oliver Wahlstrom thought his career was going to be when he came into the NHL. But I think you have to be impressed with the maturity he's showing right now, recognizing that, hey, if I'm really going to have a career in the NHL and I really want to have a long career, maybe this is maybe I do have to become Cal Clutterbuck to kind of have a longer career. So, I give him a lot of credit for getting to this point and actually looking like, he's going to be in the starting lineup come Thursday.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a great storyline to keep an eye on, right? Really to see how long it lasts and how well he does. Yeah. And I think to your point, as long as he's not a defensive liability, then he's got a shot to make his mark there on the fourth line. But one guy I want to pivot to is a guy who got a start in camp trying out the left wing on the second line with Nelson and Kyle Palmieri. That was Simon Holmstrom. He got bumped off of there for Maxim Siplikov just because I think how well he's been playing. But maybe you can just chat a little bit on how Holmstrom's looked and his role and what it looks like it's going to be with Pajot and Lee on the third line.
Yeah. And really, I mean, to bring it back to Pierre Engvall is going bye-bye because the Islanders had to have Simon Holmstrom in the lineup someplace. That was a necessity. Mm-hmm. And then once, they figured out that, Wahlstrom was going to be in the lineup, or Gauthier, who always flashes in training camp, was going to be around, then, suddenly there's no room for Engvall. And, of course, Siplikov, proving rather quickly that a really good role for him is, getting him up into the top six and getting him to the net to create havoc. But to your Holmstrom point, he's everything he was last season, which is a reliable, steady player, but with more confidence. I think that's what I see, just in his play. He's very comfortable knowing exactly where he needs to be. He knows exactly what type of player he is. He's not a flashy player. He does have speed. He can pot some goals. But he's not trying to impress anyone or, do things beyond his reach just because, he was a first-round pick and, people expect that out of him. And he's become a very valuable member here. And I think he's going to work. If you remember, like you said, he was skating with Nelson and Palmieri to start, and there was a reasonable thought that that's where he was going to wind up. And, if Siplikov didn't have the kind of camp he had, and Siplikov is just a bigger body, and, I think skating with Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri is perfect for Max Siplikov. I think Holmstrom, if you get 15 to 17 goals out of him and he's going to be a reliable penalty killer, he's really valuable. And also he's a good contract right now too. Yeah. And you need those kind of guys. Yeah. That's how you sustain success. Because you got Sorokin, above $8 million. You got Bo Horvat. You got Matthew Parcell. You got Anders Lee making a lot of money. You got all the defensemen, and you're going to have to pay Noah Dobson, and Alexander Romanov's price tag goes up and up and up and up as well. You need these, kind of Simon Holmstrom-like players to keep costs down too, and be very effective.
Yeah, we spoke to Lou today about Matt Martin. He's going to remain on his PTO. He can remain on that until the March 7th trade deadline. But, Andrew, I wanted to ask you, with Cal Clutterbuck being gone, how much value is it for the room to not lose both Clutterbuck and Martin from practice, from traveling, just those kinds of guys, at least Martin, still being around, being in the room, and offering advice when he can?
Yeah, I think that's certainly an intangible, and I'm sure Lou, who, regardless of what fans think of him, you know what? He really does think of everything. And he's meticulous in what he thinks about, and I'm 100% certain that Lou finds value for the overall team dynamic in still having Matt Martin around like that, even if he's not playing, as long as Matt Martin is happy doing this. And, you know, we both spoke to Matty today. You know, you may have, I think your questions were very similar to mine, because I asked him, you know, how long are you willing to do this?
Yep.
And do you feel like you're staying here because you're going to get a role on the Islanders? Or are you staying here to get in shape and maybe get a job somewhere else in the NHL? And, you know, Matty's not going to commit to anything. He said he takes it day by day. And he reiterated that his primary goal, if he plays in the NHL again, would be with the Islanders. But, you know, whether he stretches it out to March or not, I'm not 100% certain at that. Matt did say at a certain point you have to make, you know, decisions for yourself, your career, and your family. But, you know, I mentioned to him, I said, I don't necessarily see you pulling a Zach Parise, who, you know, when he came to the Islanders, left his family in Minnesota. Right. And would speak openly about how miserable he was missing his family. Yeah. And I don't see Matty doing that. You know, maybe if there was a you know, Philly needed him, or a Boston needed him, or, you know, God forbid the Rangers needed him, you know, this is something doable. But I don't necessarily see Matt Martin chasing 1,000 games by going out to Utah to play, you know.
Right. For sure, Andrew. And it certainly is a shrewd way, I won't say to circumvent the cap, but at least sidestep the cap for Lou to keep Matt Martin around without having his salary count against the cap.
Well, it reminds me, if you remember, of after Dennis Seidenberg, you know, was not on the roster, he skated, I think, the whole year with the team. He was
right, that's right.
You know, whether he was on a PTO or they called him like a roving it was just, but Dennis Seidenberg was staying in shape just in case they had injury problems on the back end. And it's very shrewd.
So last one for me, speaking of the back end, looks like we're going to get a healthy Scott Mayfield to start the year here. Obviously, he had his struggles with the injury right off the bat last season. He ended up having to shut it down. How has he looked any better by comparison in camp? Do you see a little more spring in his step heading into the season here?
Yeah. I think he trusts his body a little bit more. I don't. Once he hurt that ankle, I don't think he knew at any point how much strength he was going to generate, you know, out of his lower body. So, you know, from that standpoint, I see a happier, you know, more free Scott. And look, there was no drama with the defenseman from day one of camp. You knew you knew what the pairs were: Romanov, Dobson, Pelech, Pulak, and Riley Mayfield. So I think there was comfort there. There was, you know, Scott played. They wanted to test him. They played him back-to-back nights in the preseason. He played in 4 of the first 5 preseason games, and then, you know, whether they want to admit it or not, they wisely kept him out of that last Rangers preseason game, just in case. But look, you know, Scott Mayfield, you know, you're not going to get any surprises with him. The big thing with him is he staying out of the penalty box? Is he taking, you know, those
2 or 3 less icings per game?
You know, I mean, he's a very good third pair defenseman. You know, if he plays 13 to 14 minutes per night, you could do a lot worse around the NHL.
No doubt.
And last one for me, Andrew, here. Obviously, Waz spoken so much about how if they're going to win, they need all 4 lines contributing. But to have a guy like Duclair, maybe he's not a normal automatic top-line player on a lot of teams, but so far through camp, seeing the way he's played with Horvat and Barzal, you got to think that line's going to be relied upon heavily.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And you know what? You want to, because what you see on the ice is so promising. I find myself, like, you know, going, okay, like, pump the brakes here. This is the preseason. They're not they're not going to come out against Utah on Thursday and Barzi's going to have a 5-point night and they're all going to contribute a goal and they're all going to have like primary assists. But on the other hand, why? Maybe,
Sure.
maybe what we're seeing in terms of the chemistry they've built really quickly, maybe this really is for real. And they're going to get off to a really hot start. And, in October, instead of talking about Brock Nelson, we're actually talking about Bo Horvat, Matthew Barzal, and the Duke, I thought it was a smart signing. I had him, in the list of Islander targets for July 1st. And, it's very rare that you hit on something with Lou, but I sort of felt good when they signed Duclair because I was like, hey, this made sense to me. And I'm really happy that I'm seeing it the same way Lou did. It made sense to Lou,
We're going to call you Lou now.
No, because first Lou would have me gone, and then he would come after you guys.
That's
probably
fair.
true.
We don't want that. But Duclair made sense at the deadline, so it made a lot of sense with the connection with Wah.
Yeah, no, and there is a connection there, and like I said, I mean, everything's not going to be. What Rocky say? Life is not all sunshine and rainbows to start out, and I'm sure there are going to be some games where it looks like they're still trying to establish, that game-to-game consistency. But look, Duke's a strong guy. He can skate with those two. And what I like is it seems to me that Duclair's presence with that trio is opening up a lot of time and space for Matthew Barzal to operate. And that's a good thing.
Well, Andrew, awesome stuff, folks. You can find Andrew at A Gross Newsday on Twitter. You can find him at Newsday, his work at Newsday.com. And, of course, you can hear him on the Island Ice podcast. Andrew, appreciate your time, man. Great to have you back, and looking forward to talking to you soon.
Great talking to you guys, too, and I hope you have a good rest of the show.
You too, pal. Take it easy.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, folks, that was Andrew Newsday of... Andrew Newsday. I can't get through a show without doing something like that. I said something ridiculous on the last show, too. But you know what? Andrew Newsday. Andrew Gross of Newsday. Great stuff from him.
He gets experience points.
I lose another 100.
Yeah, you lose 100. You're in Engvall territory.
I am in the negative before the season even starts. But you know what? There's a long season ahead of us to build it back up.
I was going to say, only
go back up. That's right. Set the bar low. All right, so before we start to wrap this thing up, I know we wanted to get to that quote. Why don't you fire that away, Edzo?
I think he's obviously super passionate and wants to win, and so do we. And then obviously, you want to have your teammates' backs, but you obviously want to do it for the people out there today who came to show their support year after year, and you also want to do it for them. So as much as we want to do it for each other in here, we want to do it for the fans as well.
Yeah, that was Bo Horvat talking about the fan support being at UBS, and also Patrick Waugh's speech, like I mentioned earlier, getting the fans all riled up. Horvat, like you just heard, said, we do it for the fans. Waugh. The question I asked to Horvat was, doesn't he make you want to run through a brick wall? And he said, yeah, and Barzal said the same
Just
thing.
gave him a little layup there.
Why not? And I want the quote, right? That's a reporter thing to do. But watching Waugh grab the mic, I'm not here to knock past coaches, but you couldn't picture another coach doing that we've seen. And I think, like you said from the beginning of the show, Waugh gets it. It's a perfect way to wrap the show up is everything Waugh's done, is for to get the best out of the team, but it's because he understands that fans pay a lot of money. It's not back when he was playing where things were cheaper and things like that. It wasn't social media. Everyone could watch these games. It's not just the fans in the building watching. It's streaming everywhere. People in different countries watching. And he wants anytime you put on an Islander game to be proud, even if they lose. But if we always talk about it too, is winning and losing is the end. And you need that. That's how it's wins or losses. But it was how the Islanders were losing these games.
Right.
So Waugh's big thing is we're not going to be perfect every night. We're not going to win every game. But at the end of the day, I want you fans to be proud of what you're seeing on the ice and know that we're doing everything we can to win for you. And I think hearing that for fans, it's one thing to say it. You got to see it. But what we've seen, the bag skates at practice, the bag skates at UBS Arena in front of the fans. Andrew and I were joking, and we said, there's no way he's going to skate them in front of the fans.
Right.
And he did. And that's just Waugh. There's no days off. And I think for the Islanders, it's so important that from the get-go in this division that's wide open, that the Islanders get off to a very strong start. off and running from game one. That way, if they could play a consistent game throughout the year, since we haven't seen them play consistent hockey in the regular season since before Trotz, even under Trotz, it was barely getting in, things like that. This is the time for the Islanders to play the way they have to play from out of the gate and find a way to clinch a playoff spot maybe in the middle of March, not at the beginning of April.
Well, the vibes are good right now.
The vibes are good.
And hopefully they continue here into the season. Can't wait for Thursday against the Utah Hockey Club. And before we wrap things up, just want to tell you about our brand new Patreon. Go to patreon.com/HockeyNightNY for exclusive content featuring Q&As, columns, videos, behind the scenes here at the Florida Media in Rockville Center, merch and partner discounts, and even an invitation to hang with us here at Florida Media while we air the show. Great stuff there. It is a great way to support what we do here, so please check it out. Just more bonus content. If the show isn't enough for you, we're going to have plenty of exclusive content throughout the season. Stefan's going to have some great stuff for us, too. It's going to be a lot of fun, so definitely go to patreon.com/HockeyNightNY, and also we will have a newsletter that's going to be rolling out in about a week or two. Go to HockeyNightNY.com. You can sign up for the Hockey Night New York newsletter so you don't miss any news with any pieces that we have coming out. Obviously, the show, any details there. It's going to be great. A great way to keep the pulse on Hockey Night in New York. And one more thing, live events, they are coming back. We kind of were quiet with that last season, but we're bringing them back this year, particularly at Center Station in Rockville Center. We already have some viewing parties booked for November. That's going to be Sunday, November 3rd against the New York Rangers at 1 p.m. We will be rocking out there to give you a pregame show, viewing party for the Islander-Ranger game that's going to be taking place at the Garden. And then Saturday, November 16th, the Islanders will be in Seattle. That's a 4 p.m. game here Eastern Time. We'll be back at Center Station in Rockville Center, so stay tuned for more details and more events to come down the pike. So with that, we can wrap the show. All right, folks, want to send a big thanks to Andrew Gross, or Andrew Newsday, of Newsday, for joining us tonight. Great stuff from him, as always. Also a huge thanks to our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. Also a big thanks to Center Station Bar and Grill. Head on down to 279A Sunrise Highway for Isles games, live music, karaoke, comedy shows, and more. And a huge thanks to Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW-1500 for a free consultation. And remember to rate, review, subscribe to the show here. Definitely hit us up on YouTube. Get the subscriptions going. If you haven't left a review there or on the podcast, definitely hit us up there. Stefan, where can we find you on the socials?
Yeah, at Stefan_Rosner, STEFEN_ROSNER. NHL.com, the Hockey News, and the Elmonters, which is my personal Substack.
That's right.
Exclusive stuff as well every day, newsletter every morning, exclusive content all week long. Check me out there at Elmonters.
You're just bragging, man. That's a long resume.
Listen, I'll pick up anything else you want me to do. Do you want me to clean Florida Media, Jay? Do you want me to do that here?
Dude, be careful, man. He'll lock you into that.
$5.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. You can find me on Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. You can follow the show on all social media platforms at Hockey Night NY. We're going to have more articles and more content coming out. Definitely check out HockeyNightNY.com. For Stefan, for Edzo, for Jake the Snake, for Jay, I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night New York. We will see you next time.